Hi there. In this video, we're going to look a little bit more at the unpivot columns function inside of Power Query, and more specifically, we're going to be looking at how it handles creeping columns. So to start off with, I'm here in Unpivot columns.xlsx, and I'm in the creeping columns sheet. So what do I mean by creeping columns? Well, let's say that I've got data that looks like this. I've got all my stores, and I've got for each store, I've got the state that that store belongs to, and I've got my sales for the first 2 months of the fiscal year, because right now it's August, right? Next month, ostensibly, I'm going to get an additional column for September. And so if I create a query on this source table that unpivots these two columns, what happens when I add the third column? Does it know enough to unpivot that column as well? The short answer is yes, and I'm going to show you that that is indeed the case. So to start off with, we're going to click here on the table. I'm going to head up to Power Query, and I'm going to get our data from a table. Left click. Okay, here we go. I'm going to left click on state, shift click on store to select those two columns. I'm going to right click and do unpivot other columns because I want to unpivot everything but those. Click OK, and there we go. Now if you want to, you could change attribute, the names of these columns, attribute and value there directly in the M code. Change that and then that. I'm going to do it the way that's a bit more easier to read, although it takes up more steps. I'll change this from attribute to month. Left click and right click there, change that from value to total sales and hit enter. Okay, so that's great. I'm going to go ahead and close and load. Okay, so there's the end result, and that works fine for this month, but what happens next month? So let's head back over to the creeping columns sheet. So we're going to come over here, and I'm going to add a little apostrophe here. So I found out the hard way. If I type in 03/SEP and hit enter, it's going to automatically erase the 0 in front of the 3. I did that a couple times my last attempt this video. So I'm going to do apostrophe 03-SEP, and that apostrophe should help prevent Excel from trying to outthink me. I'm going to hit enter. Oh, there we go. That works just fine. And so now I'm going to do this. Now I'm not going to use the keyboard, even though I could. It's probably a little faster. I'm going to use the mouse because it's easier to think about. I'm going to click Control-C to copy that. Selected it. I'm sorry, I'm going to hit escape. So I'm going to left-click and drag, select it, Control-C to copy it, left-click there, and I'm going to right-click, paste special. Somewhere in here is values and number formatting. I'm going to click on that. Okay, so in real life, hopefully that's not how your accounting department determines what your sales are for the month. But just so we've got some numbers here for September, we're just going to assume that magically September sales are identical to August. The real key is we wanted to add that additional column and see how Power Query handles it. So if we head up to Power Query, and we're going to click on the show pane to see all of our different queries. Well, here's a query we had before. Now keep in mind, we had July and August. Now we have July, August, and September. So let's left-click on it to head over to the table. Well, it looks the same now. But that's because we haven't refreshed it yet. I'm going to head over here. I'm going to right-click on this and left-click on refresh. And now that column was included in the unpivot. Great. So that's the results I want. So I do want to show you one more thing before we finish this off. I'm going to head over here, right-click, and click Edit. So that is the behavior you want 99% of the time. You might, by some strange coincidence or twist of fate, find yourself in a situation where you don't want that behavior, where if you add columns, you don't want them to be included in the unpivot. Well, if you come up here, and I'm going to click on the Unpivot Other Columns step, notice here if we look at the function, and if you can't see this formula bar, you can click on View, and make sure that formula bar is checked. There we go. So this step is using the table.unpivotOtherColumns function, and it's unpivoting everything that isn't state and store. So if we come over here to the step that it's working on, it says, okay, so for any column that isn't store or state, right, store or state, I want you to unpivot everything else. So if there was nothing else, it wouldn't do anything. Since if there was just these two, it would unpivot those two. If there's this, and this, it would unpivot all three. And as we add more columns, it'll unpivot everything except for what is in this list, which is state and store. So that's how it works. If you are in the other situation where you don't want that behavior, there's a different function that's just called table.unpivot columns, which is what you had to use before. This is sort of the better version of it that is more robust. But if for whatever reason you want that other behavior, you could use the other function, table.unpivot columns. And since it's so unusual that you would use it, I'm not going to explain too much more about it, but just know that it is out there. So if you're in that situation, there's a solution available to you. Go look for table.unpivot columns. Okay, well, I do hope that was helpful, and I will see you next video.